We're learning a Sikha from Chelik Aleph, Parsh Mishpatim, and primarily Mishpatim is Kishmai Kenhu. We're talking about in this Parsha about the civil laws and different things having to do with tainas and with different shomerim, people that have someone else's objects in their possession, their guardians, their renters, their borrowers, etc., etc. And what happens if there's a dispute when something happens to the item or it disappears, etc., etc. So the Rebbe is going to explain, based actually on a maimer of the Tzaddik, but the Rebbe himself says he's going to elaborate on it more. He's going to explain what is this whole idea of the discussion of the different shomerim and about the different animals and things that were guarded and lost and they lied about, whatever. He's going to explain this according to Chassidus. Parshseinu Kosov al kol dvar pesha goymer al kol avodah asher yoymar ki hu zeh ad ha'elikim yaved dvar shneim. You have to bring it to Bezdin, and if he denies it and it's like it becomes stolen, Yishalom Shnaim L'Rei, he has to pay him kefil, he has to pay him double, just like any thief that robs something, he has to pay double. Hagemara Meres ki pasuk zed don b'shomer hatoyin sha Pikodon shehufked etzloi halach leibud. Here we're talking about a case that someone gave you something for safekeeping, and you came back to the owner and said, "Listen, I don't have it anymore. Something happened to it." Hutan taina shayad nifter mitashlam. What did he say? He made a claim that al pi halacha that would release him from paying back. So it depends what type of shomer he was. If he was a shomer chinam or he was a shomer sacher. Shomer chinam tainis gnei Avodah. If he didn't get paid, he did a favor for the person to have the Pikodon, to have the thing in his safekeeping. So if he said that the item was stolen or got lost, he's already released from payment. Ubeshem Sachar, since you're paid to be a guardian, you need to be more careful. So then he's released from payment, but tainus einzin. If he said that it was something completely beyond his control, he was robbed by robbers and so on. V'nishbala, and then he took an oath. Ubesoifei shel davar hisbarer sheposha Pikodon umal b'shvua. Instead of him actually having lost it or it was stolen from him, etc., he kept it, he used it, and he lied under oath. Halachi, he adalakim yabed varshneim. Both of them come to the Bezdin. Yishalom shnaim l're'ei. Duber kvar pam rabbis shekol and yonash begali the Torah yesh negam b'china ruchnis. Everything in Nigla has its spiritual source, and the Rebbe says it doesn't just have it in a spiritual level, but like I mentioned before, it's a source. The reason why it's there in Nigla is because it's there beruchnius. Va'adrab mishum shem kayam beruchnius mizbatim heim benigla. The ruchnius is the reason why it's down here begashmis. So the same thing. Af halach shel pshia, someone that did not properly guard a Pikodon, shlichus yad b'Pikodon, someone that used the Pikodon. A Pikodon you're not allowed to use. It's only brought, you're supposed to have it for safekeeping. You're not supposed to make use of it. Mi'ila b'shvua, if he swore under oath falsely, upsak adin, that the ruling is, adal akim yavid varshneim b'gayim, kayam is gam beruchnis. All of these things have their spiritual aspect and their spiritual source. Kvaytu just had more Baal Tzemach Tzaddik, and Klosein, mefarish b'maimer, sapasik, al kol dvar pesha goymer, the Tzemach Tzaddik explains this, what's it in the person's Avodah Ruchnis. And the Rebbe says, the Rebbe, in his humility, when he adds something to what the Rabbeim says, without having an open thing from the Rabbeim's Amarim, so then a lot of times you'll see the expression V'yesh loymar or v'yesh loymar b'derech efsher, because the Rebbe is like saying, I don't have on who to rely on. So usually, b'chlal, it's an interesting thing. If you look in a mimer and you see all of a sudden in the middle of a mimer, you see the words v'yesh loymar, that means the Rebbe is saying, now I'm going to tell you my take on this matter that is not said in any other mamarim. So the same thing over here. The Rebbe is saying, we're going to review what the Tzaddik says in the mimer about this, plus what we can add to this, and the Rebbe adds the words b'derech efsher. B'chol Yisrael, there was once, just to add, there was once a story with the Frierdiker Rebbe, that the Frierdiker Rebbe once said over a certain concept in Chassidus, either to the Rebbe Rashab or in front of the Rebbe Rashab, and the Rebbe Rashab asked him, like, where do you get this idea from? So he said, it says it in the mimer from one of your mamarim. And maybe he pointed out which mimer. So he said, I only said it b'derech efshar of v'yesh loymar. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, what's by the Rebbe, v'yesh loymar b'derech efshar is by mir havados. By me, it's a sure thing. So in other words, it's just this the expression that the Rebbe uses. But anyway. Top of the second column. Every Jew has Hashem's something for Hashem that he's keeping and safekeeping. It's the Neshama. He needs to guard it. He has to make sure it doesn't get damaged. Not only a normal Pikodon, all you need to do, you don't have to improve it. You need to make sure that the Pikodon stays safe and the Pikodon doesn't get ruined. But you have no obligation whatsoever to improve on it. But when it comes to the Neshama, in addition to the fact that every Yid has a Neshama as a Pikodon, we also have a responsibility to improve on it. So even though it descended down here, our job is to get it to a higher place than what it was initially. It's connected with an oath, like the Alter Rebbe brings down the beginning of Tanya. So you see already there's something already familiar to our parsha. There's a Pikodon, and there's an oath that the shomer makes for the Pikodon. Now, what about al kol dvar pesha? Someone that mistreated the Pikodon, and he didn't swear appropriately. How is it possible that a person can do such a thing? Mazbar akosov, al shoir, al chamoir, al sev, al salma. In the simple pshat of the pasuk, it's talking about that the Pikodon was an ox, or a donkey, or a sheep, or a garment. But here, the way that Tzaddik explains, the way the Rebbe explains, is that these different things, shoir, chamoir, sev, and salma, is the reason why he was pesher Pikodon, why he was moel b'shvuah. These four different things, shoir, chamoir, sev, and salma, are different types of nefsha bahamis. Hamevim l'dei al kol aveda. Like it concludes in the pasuk, al kol aveda. After it says that shoir, chamoir, and so on, al kol aveda, every aveda. This causes that the nefesh elokis gets lost, goes off the way. Lakach nefesh elokis evedus rachman litzlan. Ad lasher yomer ki hu zeh al hu harei yomer zeh. The worst thing is that they turn something that is really hu into zeh. So the Rebbe is going to explain what is zeh about and what's the level of hu. But just to give you, just to know where he's going with this. Zeh goes on alakus. Zeh goes on Hashem, like zeh keli vanveyu. Hu, that goes on klippus. But if a person says that hu, the klippus, is zeh, has the reality like a lakus, that's, taking it to the terrible degree. Zeh b'muvonei amiti nosav al kedusha v'alakus klapi shum davar ef shaloymar zeh milvad klapi hakadosh baruch hu. How come? Why can you only say Zeh about Hashem? Why can't I say about this table Zeh? Why can't I say about anything else Zeh? So he says, Mishnei time, and there's two reasons. Aleph, Zeh, b'mashmu'usei hapshuta, Zehu Zeh, efsher loy marak ala kodesh baruch. Shekei metziyusei shal nivra einena hu. Anything that's created, what it is not what it is. Zehu Zeh means this is what it is. You can't say that about anything else that was created. You can't say that the table is all that it is, because the table is nothing. It's a lakus that makes this table. Ki im has chayis halikis hamahava isay tamid ma'ayin liyesh. That's the true existence of this table. So you can't say this is a table. No, this is the dvar avayim. Ubel harambam ein sham matzi amas movadoi. What's the only true existence? Only Hashem. This is not real. This table is not real. This plate is not real, etc. That's one reason why Zeh can only go on Hashem. Beis, a second reason, Zeh b'mashmos hine Zeh. That I could always show it. I could always point to it. It's always available. It's always there. Ha'afsharis loymar b'chol zman u'b'chol makim.
No, there is a continuation.
Hine Zeh. You could say it. You could say Hine Zeh every time. Kayemes rak l'gabe elikus shekein kol nivra mugbal ve'in nimtza b'chol makim. So you can't say this is this because over there it's not this. Leficha chein makim loymar alav Zeh. Baram Shem Shamayim Shogr B'fi Koil Rak L'Gab HaKadosh Baruch Hu Nimtza B'chol Makim Leisa Sarponim Inei and also B'chol Zman Efshar Loimer Zeh Hinei Zeh, because wherever you are, whenever you are, it's always here. But what's our parsha talking about? That the Hu, which is the total opposite of Zeh, he's calling the Hu Zeh. Avol Mishum HaHelam VaHester Shnef Shabamis something that's not substantial, all in Yonim of Klippus, all in Yonim of Elam Hazeh, they call it Zeh. Then the Rebbe is going to go to what he mentioned before, that Shoyer, Chamoyer, and so on are different levels of Nefesh Habahamis. Biyachas, Leproti, Dargis, and Nefesh Habahamis. And the Chlolim, Beprosik, Barba, Sugim, Shoyer, Chamoyer, Seva, Salma, Masber Kvagdujas Admar Tzamach Tzedek B'Maimer Shemash Mu'usei Shal Shoyer Hi Shoyer Nagchon. A shoyer is an angry thing, like we have in the Gemara about the shoyer that gores, an ox that attacks a person, an ox that attacks other animals. Chamoyer, what's a chamoyer about? The Gemara says Chamra B'Tkufas Tamas Kridolei. A donkey, even in the summer, in the heat of summer, in Tkufas Tammuz, it's cold. Salma has to do with beged boigdim bagadu. That means they rebelled from the word begida. That it's a rebelliousness. The sepzura Yisrael. So the Rebbe is saying that we are not going to discuss all these things. We're just going to devote ourselves to what matters for us. Im ki actually shaman makol sugya nefesh bahamis shekol kein kolachem ham Allah vilavidas and lavedas and nefesh lekis rachman l'slan yesh b'chol zois l'chol zman haklipa miyuchedes la v'negda yesh lamoid b'yichud. There is every period, every era, every time in history, it's nisyonis. It's like we know that in the times of Tanakh, what was the big Nesayin? Avodah Zarah. And then came the Chachamim and they shechted Avodah Zarah. So there's different periods in history, different times in history where they have different types of klippus and different types of things that they have to worry about. Mishum kach, nis'akiv b'miyuchad al bir ein shal seh hanegeh b'miyuchad l'dareinu. This is what the Rebbe is going to focus on, not on the Shor Nachon, not on the Chamor B'Tkufas Tamas Krirolei, not on the Beged, the word of the Boigdenbaum, the Sepzura. So the Rebbe says, L'gabe ha'nem, top of the second column, on 144, L'gabe ha'nem ar Sepzura Yisrael, Nishal Sashayla. Yisrael Ushem Amayla. Ve'ilu sep zura chesar. A scattered sheep, lost, doesn't have the identification, doesn't know where it belongs, doesn't connect with the name Yisrael. Yisrael, as opposed to Yaakov, we know, Yisrael is the name of a Maila. Why do we call it a Sep Zura? Madu Eifa B'Shosha Kosav Reit Loimer Sep Zura, who masked Shem Yisrael, Acha Inyan who Sha'amnam Zois Shoyal Navi. How can it be that Yisrael should be a Sep Zura? What's the meaning of Yisrael? Ish Yisrael Mesugal Lisrael Loirak al Noshim Kilgam Malachim. So we should be the strongest of all the nations. We should stand strong because we have this amazing power. So you're even able to overcome Malachim. How do we have this nature of being like such lemelach in Yiddish? We're such sheep. We're so weak. Keitzad ein loy toikev v'mida kazu ad shu nigrar achar kol echad hu b'chinas sep zura. How can it be that someone that has the name Yisrael, so this Amalekim, he should have the Jewish pride, and he has no pride whatsoever. He's just like sheep. We know that the name Achashverosh, the Chazal say, can be broken down into the words Achris v'Reish Shaloi, which is talking about Hashem. The end and the beginning is His. So Hama, meaning the Satan in Shemayim, the Makatrik in Shemayim, the prosecutor in Shemayim, comes to the king Hashem, Achris v'Reish Shaloi, to Achashverosh, and says, Yesh noy am echad mefuzar mefarid ben ha'amim. He's quoting the Megillah. V'ezdasei hamelech ein moisim. There's one nation. They're scattered and set apart amongst the nations, and the laws of the king they're not doing. So he explains like this: Yesh noy am shekol mehusa yechad. There's a nation that's all about the Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. He can bring down Hashem's unity, oneness, echad, every place, even in this earth. What does it mean, Goy Echad Ba'aretz? Chassidus says it doesn't just mean in the simple sense, Goy Echad Ba'aretz, one nation amongst all the nations in the world, but they are a nation that brings the echad of Hashem, the Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, that it should be in this earth, it should be felt and be known. Ubechol Zois, Haman, meaning in Shemayim, was being mekatrig and said, Lamrois Gidulasai, the greatness of the Yidden, Umefuzar Umefoired Bein Ha'amim. He lets the nations dictate to him. He feels like he's a shemata amongst the nations. He's scattered amongst the nations. Umisrashim Mispol Mekol Echad. He is influenced by everybody. He's impressed by everybody. Therefore, the laws of the king, which king? Malchai Shaloilam, the king of the world, ain't a moisten they don't do. The truth is, wherever a Yid comes, he should be the one that should dictate his environment. He should show the entire city, in the spiritual sense, how it's supposed to run. Not just the city, Hasviva Kula, the entire environment, Vamadina Kula, and the whole country. Instead, he loses like his self-esteem. He loses identity. He doesn't only influence. Now we have this whole thing about influencers. Everybody's an influencer. That's the Rebbe saying. Every Jew needs to be an influencer. But instead of being an influencer, he's doom scrolling. He's becoming influenced. He is imitating all the narishkeit and all the foolishness of the country and the environment and the city. Instead of him influencing the entire, wherever it is that the Shulchan Aruch should be the final rule, the final law and everything, instead the environment all of a sudden is telling him what to do. And his neighbor, the Rebbe says in the Yiddish version of the Sikha, the next door. In English, the words next door is like an expression. What is the next door neighbor going to think? How are they going to look at this? I got to hide this and not act too Jewish over here and not do that because the next door is not going to be so excited about it. His neighbor is the one that determines how the Jewish home will be run. ובמידה כזו עד שאפילו לגבי חינוך הילדים שהם תקווס ויסוד כל בייס וכל עם ישראל מסגל הדר התקיפוס. The Rebbe says, Mele, I don't have a backbone to stand up for myself, that's one thing. But the foundation of the Jewish people, the foundation of every family are the children. If I don't have the courage for myself to stand up to the environment, at least I should have the courage to make sure that my children have the Jewish pride and stand up for Yiddishkeit. And instead, the idea of Zeb Zura means that even for his children, he's trying as much as possible to have them blend in and imitate the environment around them. Al Yisrael b'yoyis ma'afilu b'golos hakosher b'yoyser, golos mitzrayim nemar, melamed shal Yisrael mitziyonim shon, shloishinu es shmam l'shoinu v'levusham. In the worst exile, in Mitzrayim, it says that the Yidden stood out. They were noticeable. Why were they noticeable? Because they didn't assimilate. Their language, their names, their garments, they looked different. They didn't say, let's blend in, let's assimilate, let's not make waves. ובמוקים זה, אין בזמננו התקיפס הדרושה ואנושים מחפשים תחבולה שלא יהיה ניכר בילד של יהודי. Instead of that, at present, we're always looking for ways to make a Jewish child look as least Jewish as possible. When a Jewish boy is walking the street, should be recognizable from a far array. Should be able to tell this is a Jewish. This is a Jew. Shayri Yisrael Shema Maila, because like we said before, Yisrael is a chashuv name. V'ilu l'mayla mizbayshim bekach u'menatzlim. V'ilu l'maysa mizbayshim bekach u'menatzlim eskola avsharius lahasris adavar. Instead, people are embarrassed and they try to use any possibility to conceal the fact that it's a Jewish child. Now, Lefiza Nitten Gam Lahasbres Kushas Agimada Lagabedin Haveda said the cause of Rahman Lamli. L'Shema Mashmiel Lanu Atoyre Shesh Lahash Voice Vare Poshet Adavar. In when it talks about Al Kol Dvar Aveda, it talks about returning lost objects also. It hints at. And the Gemara, as we'll soon mention, says for each one of them, Shoyer, Chamoyer, and Salma, why the pasuk has to explicitly mention them. But when it comes to the sheep, the Gemara has no understanding. Why does the Torah have to tell you that if you saw a lost sheep, you have to return it? Vagmara Masbira, the said Aveda Kashi Lagabe Shoyer Chamoyer Salma Yesh Chidush Bekach Yesh Lahachster Saver Kushafash Gemara Avaloi Baseh. So therefore, what is the Rebbe deriving from this? What do you do with someone that is so lost, they don't have the Jewish pride, they don't have their sense of identity, they're willing to hide, and they try to hide their own Jewishness and their family's Jewishness and their children's Jewishness. According to what we said before, we can explain this in a person's service to Hashem in short. Aleph, short is nagach, like we said before. He's a goring ox. Beis chamoir shalom rois sheshemesh havai betoykif kufus tammuz krirolei. It says that the sun, Hashem is likened to the sun. When we say that Tammuz, the heat of the summer, that means that the highest levels of godliness are shining then. The most powerful sun is shining then. And what's going on? The donkey is like so untouched that even when there's this powerful sun, this powerful godly revelation, it's unmoved. Salma, beged boigdim b'Torah mitzvahs. We said someone's rebelling against Torah mitzvahs. B'chol elu yesh chidush b'kach shem sugolim loshuv. All of these, the pasuk has to tell you, there's hope for them. Al kol Avodah. You could return someone that is a nagach, that's a goring, angry person. You could return someone that's rebellious. A rebellious person means that he's just ipchem estaber. If Judaism says to do this, I'm going to do just the opposite. That's what boigdim is. Lahachis it's called. Mumar lahachis. Someone that's cold, even when things are warm, that's also, it's a chiddush. You gotta work on them. Don't give up hope on them. And then v'shaver afaloi, they'll return, they'll be healed. Aval b'sepzura she'en kanel zoyshi b'sura bein ha'amin, my kamashul shish lahachzer aveda. Why does he even have to tell you that he have to return this lost? If such difficult types of people, someone that's likened to a shor nagach, someone that's cold even when it's warm, someone that's rebellious, even we have to work on returning and bringing back to Yiddishkeit. So someone that's only a lamb, only a sheep, for sure you have to bring it back. The Torah doesn't have to tell you that you have to bring him back. Satshuvi adrabe. Said Avodah kashya zeh hakosher b'yoser lahashiv. The one who doesn't have pride, the Jewish pride, the self-confidence to stand up to his environment and identify openly with the Jewish people, that's the most difficult of all these different groups, the Shoyer, the Chamoyer, the Salma. Kishe'ein hayisoid v'aschola shel kol arba'as chelkei Torah v'shulchan aruch al yevish bnei hamaligim ech yagia al shulchan aruch. Shulchan aruch begins with the injunction, Yehuda ben Tema Omer, Yehuda, the son of Tema, says different things. One of the things is, have a azkanamar, meaning, al yevish bnei hamaligim. Do not be embarrassed for those that scoff. And only then does it go into all the 4 different sections about every single din, every single halacha that a person needs to know, every single law and rule that a person has to know. So the Rebbe is saying, if a person doesn't have self-confidence, if he doesn't have this backbone, he doesn't have this idea of not being embarrassed from other people and standing up for his Jewishness, how can you even approach him with Shulchan Aruch? That's the basis, that's the beginning, that's the foundation of Shulchan Aruch. Comes the Torah and tells you, even such a difficult lost object, even that it's possible to return. Why? Because nothing could stand in the way of tshuva. Continuation, it says, what is the halach and the advice when someone had made use of a object for safekeeping? When this use was based on these 4 problems, who ad halikim, what does it mean halikim in this context? Daino. Yovid varshneim, you have to bring it to the courts. You got to bring it to the judge. And the Rebbe says, Dovar amusav al adayna rishon Moshe. It goes back to the first judge. Who was the first judge? We had it in last week's parsha. Moshe Rabbeinu was the first judge, and Yisrael had to tell him, why are you sitting here all alone doing the judging? Go ahead and appoint people that can help you out. But the first judge was Moshe Rabbeinu. So, Ad Alakim Yavid Varshneim, how do you deal with all these different issues? You need to get back to Moshe. The Ispashtus of the Moshe B'chol Dara V'Dara. Even though you're going to tell me Moshe Rabbeinu passed away 3,000 something years ago. It's fine, but every single generation we know we have an extension, an expansion of Moshe Rabbeinu. He gives us the capability to do tshuva the way it's supposed to be. That he will pay double to his fellow. Re'ehu hu HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It says, there's a pasuk, I think it's a Mishlei, Re'acha v're'a avicha al taziv. Your friend and the friend of your father do not desert. And the meaning of that is, it's talking about Hashem. It's called our friend and the friend of our father, of our parents, and so on. So you have to pay back double to Hashem. What does that mean, paying back double to Hashem? The Alter Rebbe in the Geras HaTshuva says that one of the modes and levels of tshuva is that to double his effort from before he did the Avodah. So if he used to read 1 page, he should read 2 pages, etc. So when the person does tshuva, Hashem will pay him back measure for measure. That even the negative things that he did will be transformed to positive and good. Even the animal soul, even that which was originally getting him into trouble, will now push him to do good. More specifically, there's these different types of nefesh habahamis that we spoke about, shor, chamor, etc. From the nefesh habahamis, that's a level of a goring ox. An ox is very strong. And the pasuk says there are a lot of harvests in the power of an ox. If a person were to work a field himself, he wouldn't be able to get as much done as taking an ox to plow the field and then afterwards cut the wheat, etc., etc. So the same thing, when we bring the nefesh habahamis into our service of Hashem, since the nefesh habahamis has the power of an ox, so that same power that before was pulling him away from godliness is now going to push him forward and propel him even stronger than what he did by himself before. Mechamoir, what do we get from the donkey? Yisachar chamor garam, Avodah shel kabolos oil chamor lamasa. Yisachar is likened to a donkey, that which is the avodah of, just like a donkey is like, it carries a load. Even a heavy load, the same thing. There's the idea of just accepting the yoke of heaven and doing what Hashem wants, even if it might sometimes feel like I'm carrying a load. From the fact that nefesh habahamis is like this scattered sheep, that it's like this lost sheep that was going off the way. He doesn't have any self pride. It'll be, search out your servant, draw me after you, that'll be drawn after Hashem in a way it's beyond reason. Misalma, from the level of the clothing, the scent of your clothing will be like the scent of Levonon. The general meaning of this matter is even the animal soul could help out the service of Hashem. Why does it say b'chol levavcha with 2 vases? Should have said b'chol libcha. It says b'chol levavcha b'shnei yitzarecha, with both your yetzer tov and your yetzer hara. The person needs to serve Hashem and use out all the negative traits of the animal soul, not to ignore it, but to transform it to work in the world of Kedusha.